few years ago, I was at a Hamfest in Minnesota. This must have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where I had purchased these three Motorola mobile type duplexers. I believe these are 8 cavity, but I could be wrong. And I thought I'd maybe pick one of these today and see if I can tune one of these guys. I've never tuned a duplexer, so maybe this is a good time for me to kind of give it a shot and learn that process, if you will. These duplexers have some markings on them. Let me see if I can bring a closer look here. Now they are marked as transmit from on the higher side of the frequency and then receive from the lower side. That's confusing to me. And I believe duplexers usually transmit on the, well, they're tuned to transmit on the lower side of the lower frequency coordination, and then receive on the higher end of the frequency coordination. So what I'm going to do is maybe I'll pick one of these and do just that. I will tune the received side to be on the higher frequency and the transmit side to be on the lower frequency. Perhaps we'll pick 442.25 and 447.25 and see if we can tune this duplexer to that coordination. One other marking I want to call out here, I don't know if you can see it. It says $36. So I paid $36. Actually, I might have paid much lesser than the asking price. That was the asking price, to be honest. And one other point I wanted to kind of bring to your attention. Maybe this is something I wasn't sure what this was, so maybe I'll ask it here. Obviously, the antenna here is the SMA antenna, so that's not an issue. But these B and C looking connectors, I'm not sure what those connector types are. If anyone knows what those are, please do let me know. They have these B and C type notches too, but the center pin, that's what threw me off a little. In any case, so that's that. On the rear end of the duplexer, they have these locking nuts, and on the tuning knobs, obviously we will loosen up these locking nuts and then use a flathead screwdriver to kind of tune the receive and the transmit side of the duplexer. On the, I believe this is the, let's see, this is the receive side that has only 3 tuning knobs, and this one is left open. I'm not sure why that is or what that is for. In any case, I'll pick one of these guys and get this going. Let me put some of these aside. Maybe I'll pick this bottom one here. I'm going to put these aside. I'll be right back. This one here has the similar marking, but this is the 468, 463 range. But as you can tell, this also is marked transmit from the higher frequency and the receive from the lower side. So I'm not sure. Maybe there was an operation that needed that. I'm not aware of anything, but I bet they did it for a reason. So what I'll do is I'll tune this duplexer to 442 on the transmit and 442.25 on the transmit and 447.25 on the receive. These duplexers actually came with connectors like these They look like BNC male type connectors, but again, that center pin kind of threw me off a bit. All right, so that's the antenna going into the well, I think I need to, let's see, it doesn't matter which way we connect the tracking generator. Of course, in this case, I connected the tracking generator to the transmit port right here, and then the antenna was connected to the RF input on the spectrum analyzer. And I put a dummy load, a 50 ohm sort of a dummy load on this side of the receive port. All right, so with that in place, I'm going to switch the focus to my spectrum analyzer, and I will be tuning the transmit side. This is the transmit side of the duplexer, and this is the receive side. I'm going to tune this side first and get it to 442.25, which is what we'll be transmitting out of. And then I'm going to set up the spectrum analyzer and the tracking generator. Okay, so what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to set my center frequency to 442.25 megahertz. And I'm going to set my marker and move it to the center frequency. So we have our marker there, so that is our 442.25. I'm going to turn on the tracking generator. And we're going to put out negative 10 dBm as always. So what you're seeing here is a frequency response of the receive, or rather the transmit side of the duplexer. Let's go back to the marker. So we have a good range of usable frequency that we can potentially tune this duplexer to. It can also be tweaked on the higher end of the 400 megahertz frequency. So what I'm going to do is, first off, let's go back to our marker, move marker to 442.25 megahertz. So right now 442.25 is attenuated, so we need to move this up a notch. So by the way, I don't have the best cables in the world for tuning this duplexer, so I might have a higher amount of loss in terms of dBm here. But all I'm trying to do here is trying to tune this to the best I can using the cables I have. So obviously in real life, what you will do is you will use quality cables. You won't use cheapo cables that I have here for this experiment, because I don't have the right adapters for those quote-unquote BNC sockets I showed earlier. In any case, in real world you'll have better cables. You'll want to attain a better pass-through dBm and better attenuation for the reject side of the frequency. So with all that said, let's get going here. Those tuning knobs, they work very, very gingerly, in the sense we don't have to go crazy with turning those knobs. We could just do very little bit of a fine tuning is all that's required in my humble opinion, but we'll find out, I guess. So I'm gonna first off see what these knobs do. So I'm turning this top left knob clockwise. So, and then moving to the next one down to the right. Okay, and then moving down to the left. Then moving this other one to the down right. Moving. Now that seems to move. Let's see if we can get that going. Maybe not. So I'll leave that there for now. There we go. So now, what's the pass-through pushing this marker? And keep an eye on this, the dBm, the loss there. So we're at about, whatever, is negative 17.61. Looks like that's the best I could do here, it sounds like. Or maybe not. 17.07, 16. Yeah, so looks like that might be where I would want to keep that. So looks like we've accomplished moving the 44225 to the pass-through side of the frequency response. With that said, I don't like the amount of pass-through, the bandwidth on the upper end here. I'd rather see an attenuation skirt drop right about there, and maybe right about there. Let's see if we can do something with that. I'm going to turn this other knob. No, that's not doing much. Let's yeah, that seems to be working. So we were able to bring down this notch, which is a good sign actually, because we definitely want to attenuate anything that's not 44225 as best as we can. Let's see. Well, we don't want to lose the dBm, the pass-through dBm, because we definitely want to maintain minimal loss there. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish here. So it's as you can tell, it's an act of balancing here, meaning you don't want to attenuate your pass-through frequency. At the same time, you want to also attenuate the reject frequency or the reject attenuation skirts. You want to make sure you emphasize that. So that's what I'm trying to. And guys, if this is my first time tuning any duplexer for that matter. So if I'm doing something terribly wrong, please do feel free to correct me. Looks like for us to maintain that level of minimal loss for the pass-through, looks like that amount of bandwidth is what we will end up with. So I do like this attenuation skirt, but I think we can get down even further. So we want to, I'm trying to minimize that peak there, right? We don't want it to be too broad. I want it to be quite narrow. So that's what I'm trying to do here. At the same time, not losing the pass-through dBm or the power. Yeah, that doesn't look right. Our 44225 is here, but I'm not liking this other peak here. So if I do peak search, it's going to find that. That's our, so whichever that's 470. I know it's kind of far away, right? From 442.25. That's at 470.23. Yeah, it's quite far away. I think that should be all right, right? And then let's go to marker left here. I'm gonna go to marker number 2, turn that on, and I'm gonna set this other frequency, right? The 447.25, which is that guy. So that is our adjacent frequency, and we want to attenuate that, right? That's more important, because when we transmit on this 442.25, when we transmit on this 442.25, we want to make sure this is quite attenuated. Otherwise, there'll be a interference. We want to avoid that by any means possible. So I'm gonna move we want to attenuate that. There we go. I think we are doing good here. So let's go back to marker 1. Yeah, I think we are good, although I'm not, like I said, I don't like this higher lobe here. But I think I think that's the best I could do here. So for the 442.25, we are at about -17, which means, given we have a -10 source, we're about -8 or so dBm loss. I would attribute that loss to bad cables on my side. Let's actually increase our span. Let's go to span. I'm gonna get a better granular view of this. Yeah, I think that might be a better view of this, because as you can tell, we need to narrow it down for better tuning here. So I'm gonna go back. Let's go to frequency marker 2, 447.25 megahertz. So that's that, which is fine. I think I'm okay with that. Yeah. So I think we were able to accomplish what we needed to here, at least to the best I can. On the 442, let me pull up this guy. 442, we are at negative 7.7 dBm, given negative 10 is the source. On the adjacent, we are at about negative 65 or negative 55-ish attenuation, which is fantastic. I'm trying to see if we can somehow tune this side of the skirt. Go to marker 1. I think that's the best I could do because everything else is gonna throw this off a bit. All right, so I think that's where we will leave it. Okay. Whether we could tune this anymore, I'm not sure. Maybe that looks better, I'm not sure. I'm okay with it peaking and dipping and then the skirt kind of dropping like so. I'm okay with that. I don't know if this is better, right? If this is better, or if this is better, because now we are pushing this guy a little further out, right? And kind of maintaining that attenuation, but this is not as attenuated as this one. So I guess I'm gonna leave it there for now and call it done on the transmit side. And what I'm gonna do, if you go back to trace, and there is a hold max. Let me do this instead. There's a hold max, which is this guy here. Hold max, and then view A. All right, so it's gonna persist that in memory for us to compare contrast. So now we've done the transmit side. On the receive side, it needs to be flipped, meaning on the receive side, we need to pass the 447. So this dot here needs to be passed through, and we need to attenuate the 442 side of the frequency. So I'm going to switch now to B, and I'm going to clear B and start tracking, but before that I'm going to turn off my tracking generator for now. All right, so what you're seeing there, that's the memory of the trace A. I'm going to blank A for now, so we are starting with clean slate. So let me get this set up for the receive side, and I'll be right back. I'm not going to mess with the markers. The markers will remain the same because now we want to make sure on the receive side, which should be passed through, and 442 should be attenuated. We want to retain the markers, but let's turn on the tracking generator. As you can see here, I'm going to loosen up these locking nuts. So let's go back to our markers. Well, let's do marker number 1 should be 442.25 megahertz, and marker number 2 should be 447.25. All right, so I messed it up earlier. So That's our 447. That's our 442. So we are on the receive side, which means we will need to pass the 447 but attenuate 442. So let's see how we do that. Nice. I like that. All right, I know I moved this other one around. There we go. I think that's beautiful. I think that is beautiful. Yes. All right. I'm gonna lock these, or at least snugly tighten then we'll go back and readjust slightly. So let's go back here. Yep. Just a little bit more. Very good. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to go back to my trace, go to B, hold B, and view B, and I'm going to go to A and view A. So that's a beautiful picture for me. So if you look at, so I hope you guys are able to see what I'm showing here. So let's go back to trace. So what we are doing here, I'm going to blank A, right? Let's go to B, blank B. So right now we tuned our receive side and the transmit side. The transmit side was stored in A, so let's go to A bucket, in the trace bucket that is, and say view A. So that was our the transmit side, and let's go to view bucket B and view B. Let's go to markers, marker 1. Turn that on. All right. So that's a picture I really like. So if you look at this side, that is the 442.25, and this side, that's a 447.25. So this frequency curve here, that's the transmit. We are going to transmit on the low side, that's why that is passed through, and attenuates the 447, the adjacent frequency. This other frequency graph is the receive side, where we are receiving on the higher frequency, and that's passed through, and the lower side of the frequency is attenuated. So that's what I'd like to see, although I ideally, if there was a way, I would have loved to see that part to be completely skirted out, but that's okay. That's the best I could do with what I have or I know. So if you guys have a better, I'm going to take a picture of that really quick. Okay. All right. I hope this was useful. Thanks for watching. Again, if I goofed up anything, pardon my ignorance. Please do leave comments. Would love to learn from this process. We'll talk soon, and God bless.